Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.
Hi, I'm Joe Sweeney. I founded the Acervo Project in response to the growing epidemic of human trafficking and child exploitation. Classifying this as an epidemic is an understatement. Our investigation teams and cyber analysts are tracking child predators every day. We're making a difference, but we need your help. The average age of a trafficked child is just 14 years old. Will you join the Acervo Project team? Donate $14 a month to protect the next at-risk 14-year-old. Pledge your $14 a month at theacervoproject.org. That's ASSERVO.org.
From the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Friday edition of Washington Watch. I'm Jody Heiss, a Senior Vice President here at the Family Research Council. Honored to be sitting in on this Friday afternoon, and thank you for joining us on this edition of Washington Watch. We've got a packed program for you. Let me give you the highlights. It was a historic day for our country, some calling it a dark day for our country, as former President Donald Trump was booked in an Atlanta jail yesterday and later released on bond. But despite his legal prosecution, or persecution, as some are calling it, the former president still has a commanding lead in the GOP presidential primary. But House Republicans want to look into the motives behind the latest effort to prosecute the president. South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman will join me in just a moment to talk about this. And a coalition comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa met in Johannesburg this week, seeking to build a power base to rival U.S. international influence. And it appears to be growing.
We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS.
Well, that was South Africa's president announcing the expansion of the BRICS coalition. The question is America losing its appeal thanks to the disastrous policies of the Biden administration? Are we driving other countries away? Liberty University's Dr. Dave Bratt will answer that and more a little bit later on in the program. And speaking of the tragic consequences of the Biden administration's foreign policy, tomorrow marks a sad anniversary for our nation. 2 years ago, 13 soldiers died from a suicide bombing attack during the president's disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. And we remember all of them this weekend.
Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover, Sergeant Nicole G., Sergeant Johanny Pichardo, Staff Sergeant Ryan Naus, Corporal Dagan Page, Corporal Humberto Sanchez, Corporal Hunter Lopez, Hospital Corpsman Maxton Soviak, Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui, Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, Lance Corporal Jared Schmidt, Lance Corporal David Espinoza, Lance Corporal Riley McCullum.
We remember all 13. That was a reading of the names earlier this month by Alicia Lopez, a mother of one of the Marines killed. Tom Kilgannon from Freedom Alliance will join me to reflect on those lives that were lost too soon and how we can honor them. And Chloe Cole, that's a name that many have come to be very familiar with recently. She's been testifying around the country about the harms of transgender ideology.
My name is Chloe Cole, and I used to identify as a transgender boy between the ages of 12 to 16. I'm 19 years old now, but all of my teenage years and the entire trajectory of my life has been altered by delusional ideas that were pushed on me from a young age.
Well, that was Chloe speaking at a school board meeting earlier this month, and she will join me a little bit later to share her powerful story and her efforts to protect children from what she experienced. So we have a packed program lined up for you, and just by way of reminder, if you miss any portion of today's program, you can catch it at our website, tonyperkins.com. Also, of course, a ton of resources are available there for you, as well as archived programs that you may want to go back and view. Again, that's tonyperkins.com. All right, let's jump into our program for this evening. We started with former President Donald Trump, who surrendered and was booked at an Atlanta jail yesterday. The former commander-in-chief posted bond and exited the facility in a process that we're told took about 20 minutes. But there's no doubt that process is going to play a major role in the 2024 presidential elections and very likely the future of our entire country. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Ralph Norman. He serves on the House Budget Committee, also the Financial Services Committee, and the Rules Committee. He's also a great friend and a member of the House Freedom Caucus. He represents the 5th Congressional District of South Carolina. Congressman Norman, great to see you. Welcome back to Washington Watch.
Jody, we miss you in Washington, D.C. That's my message. God, you did a good job while you were there. But you're doing a good job now with the Tony Perkins and his crew.
Well, thank you, Ralph, very much. And listen, I miss you. I miss all the crew. And I miss those times in the Conservative Opportunity Society, which you chair, and the wonderful breakfast that we had every week. I miss that. Well, let's get started into this. First, this whole issue with President Trump and the jail, the booking yesterday. And, of course, it's currently the jail there is under a federal investigation for cruel treatment of its prisoners. But give me your take on this.
Well, Jody, it's a persecution of the former president. It's a persecution, and this administration has weaponized every agency of government. And for your listeners, they're coming after us. It could be us next. And what they're doing to Donald Trump is not right. It's not fair. It started off, look at the timing. It started off in, I think, February of 21. This is 23. Fannie Willis has made a fundraiser out of this to prosecute, President Trump and 18 others under the RICO statute, which is racketeering. It's unbelievable, but that's why this election is so important. That's why we don't want the persecution of other people. What about, the Biden administration? I mean, they have so much on them. They're the ones that ought to be looking at the probe, but the media won't cover that. And they sure covered Donald Trump. They sure covered his mugshot. And, it's a travesty for our legal system. It's a travesty for the country.
Well, it really is. I was very much interested to see, though, that the Judiciary Committee under Jim Jordan looks like they're going to have a probe into Georgia's Fulton County's district attorney regarding her motives for prosecuting former President Trump. And their reason for the probe is concerns about her motive. That was all politically driven, as really you're alluding to. Are you inclined to agree with that it was a politically driven prosecution?
That's all it is. And Jim Jordan's letter, which he sent out August 24th, which demanding records, demanding any federal dollars that came into her office. And, we've got to have testimony from Mr. Weiss and so many others. But no, Jim Jordan's exactly right to ask us in this letter, lay it out. What she's doing is so obvious it's political. That's all it can be. And she made her motives known prior to this. Look at the timing that they took to do this right before the primaries and right before the debates. And they want to make President Trump look as bad as he is. It's having the opposite effect, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it really is. It looks like every time it gets indicted or something, he just takes another surge in the polls. If I can switch gears with you a little bit, the Biden administration, I don't know if you saw this or not. I think you probably did, especially in light of what's recently happened in South Carolina. But the Biden administration has launched a $25 million ad campaign pushing its abortion policies and targeting specifically some of the Republican presidential candidates the other night who were so strong on their pro-life messages. Your thoughts on the administration putting this kind of campaign against some pro-life candidates?
You know, they're using this as a wedge issue, Jody. I mean, instead of talking about the serious things that are affecting this country, like inflation, like our crisis at the border, like our crime in the streets, like our overspending, like our woke military, they're using the anything they can to divide and to put out lies about the candidates. And if Joe Biden has no record to run on, and it's kind of like what the Social Security that the Democrats always did is Grandy being pushed over the cliff. They're doing the same thing with the abortion issue. And this is a socialist party that agrees with abortion on demand. They agree with that killing a child is medical care. And they're willing to do it right up to a perfectly healthy baby that's been born. It's so tragic. And but that's what we're facing. And that's why it's so important to stop this party from doing what they're doing. And the only way you do it is you beat them and you throw them out of office.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, they support many of them, at least, if not all of them, that support abortion right up to birth. And, of course, Jen Psaki, you probably saw her tweet saying that no one supports abortion till birth. But the one that she worked for does. Al Franken said something similar. Your response to that?
Well, I've had them at hearings, Jody, when I was on the oversight committee. And, they tried to dodge the question, but, and I asked them point blank, would they kill a child? And that's the only way you can describe it. Would they kill a perfectly healthy child upon birth? And they kept going back to abortion was health care, which it's not. Killing a child is not health care. I also asked them whether they would, when currently in law, if a pregnant mother gets killed, it's double homicide. Would they agree to, if it's not killing the child, do away with that law? But it's hypocrisy at its highest. They support the death of children. And I'm glad the candidates took the position they did, different ones, but they took a position of life. And that's what this country was founded on, not killing our unborn.
Well, absolutely. And speaking of that, congratulations to your state of South Carolina with the major pro-life victory when your state Supreme Court rejected a challenge to the heartbeat law earlier this week. I know that had to thrill you.
Well, it thrilled me 4-1. The heartbeat bill, Steve King was always led the fight on this, but you cannot have an abortion. Typically, that's at 6 weeks when you detect a heartbeat. So they passed that, and it's what a wonderful gift to the state that the state Supreme Court did. It's the right decision. We're a pro-life state, and it was a great day for South Carolina, a great day for the nation, really.
It really was. Well, listen, we've only got about a minute left. House Freedom Caucus released a statement on what it will take for them to support a continuing resolution to fund the government. Are you on board with that? And what do you anticipate happening with this financial battle coming up in September?
Absolutely, Jody. This is what the fight was in January when the 5 of us and then the 20 of us, had a understanding with the speaker. But no, our position is that, we've got to have the cap and spending of the pre-COVID levels of $1.47 trillion. We've got to stop the weaponization of the DOJ, border security, end the woke military, take the dollars out of that. And unless we get that, he can't pass it. And we got the 80%, as you know, that's required for the Freedom Caucus. And, the threat of a government shutdown, bring it on. If that's what they want to if that's what they threaten us with, then do it. Because if not now, when? This is common sense things. And
that's right.
If we can't have agreement on this, it's a sad day in the country.
Congressman Ralph Norman from South Carolina, thank you for joining us on Washington Watch. Keep the torch ablaze, my friend.
Great seeing you, Jody.
You too. All right, coming up, a coalition of nations trying to rival U.S. power. I'll discuss all of it with former Congressman Dave Bratt right after the break. Stay tuned.
In recent years, Christians have seen an accelerated assault on not just our core beliefs, but their very foundation. Now is the time to build on that foundation, strengthen our faith, and learn how to translate our beliefs into actions that engage the culture around us. That's the purpose behind this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. Believe and engage. Pray, Vote, Stand Summit is a national gathering of spiritually active, governance-engaged conservatives, or SageCons. We'll hear from Christian leaders, worldview experts, government officials, and more. We'll discuss important issues like the sanctity of life, religious freedom, protecting students, strengthening families, praying for our nation, and how you can impact America's future from a biblical worldview. Together, we can believe and engage. Join us September 15th through 17th in Washington, D.C. for this pivotal event. Register now at PrayVoteStand.org.
Everything we do begins as an idea. Before there can be acts of courage, there must be the belief that some things are worth sacrificing for. Before there can be marriage, there is the idea that man should not be alone. Before there was freedom, there was the idea that individuals are created equal. It's true that all ideas have consequences, but we're less aware that all consequences are the fruit of ideas. Before there was murder, there was hate. Before there was a Holocaust, there was the belief by some people that other people are undesirable. Our beliefs determine our behavior, and our beliefs about life's biggest questions determine our worldview. Where did I come from? Who decides what is right and wrong? What happens when I die? Our answers to these questions explain why people see the world so differently. Debates about abortion are really disagreements about where life gets its value. Debates over sexuality and gender and marriage are really disagreements about whether the rules are made by us or for us. What we think of as political debates are often much more than that. They're disagreements about the purpose of our lives and the source of truth. As Christians, our goal must be to think biblically about everything. Our goal is to help you see beyond red and blue, left and right, to see the battle of ideas at the root of it all. Our goal is to equip Christians with a biblical worldview and help them advance and defend the faith in their families, communities, and the public square. Cultural renewal doesn't begin with campaigns and elections. It begins with individuals turning from lies to truth. But that won't happen if people can't recognize a lie and don't believe truth exists. We want to help you see the spiritual war behind the political war, the truth claims behind the press release, and the forest from the trees.
Well, welcome back to Washington Watch. It's an honor to have you joining us this afternoon. All right, let's get into this. One of the issues kind of going under the radar. There's a group called BRICS, the BRICS Coalition. They held a 3-day summit in South Africa, and really this summit raises a lot of questions for U.S. international diplomacy. For those of you who may not be aware, BRICS stands for and represents Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they have formed an alliance to challenge U.S. powers. And among the many headlines that were generated by the summit this week, probably the most notable announcement is that they have additional countries coming on board with them. Play clip 3, please.
We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS.
Wow, well, that was South Africa's president making the announcement. So what does all this mean for the United States? And, you know, really the bottom line is the United States losing its appeal thanks to the actions and the policies of this administration. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Dave Bratt. He's previously a member of Congress, and now he serves as the Dean of the Liberty University School of Business. Dr. Bratt, always wonderful to see you. Welcome back to Washington Watch.
Congressman Heiss, great to be on with you, Jody. God bless.
Well, likewise to you, my friend. All right, let's start off with some of the background on BRICS. Probably many of our viewers and listeners heard about BRICS perhaps for the very first time as we come into this segment. So what is the BRICS coalition, and what are their goals?
Yeah, well, you had the setup right. It's a reaction against the overreach of the United States. And finally, we've gone too far. We're $50 trillion in debt. And when the rest of the world is seeing your higher interest rates and the probability that you might not pay off your debt in the future, they say, not sure about this. Plus, we have inflation at 9% last year, which devalues their money. If they're holding dollars, their dollars are being devalued. Why would anybody want to do that? So now you have the BRICS, like you said, plus 20 other countries lined up to take advantage of American weakness. And what's really going on here is this, we're debating the loss of our global reserve currency. There's been only 5 of those in the past 500 years. It started off 1500, you had Portugal and Spain, and then you had the Netherlands lost theirs. And then the French Revolution, they lost theirs. And then England lost theirs through World War I and World War II. Why did they all lose them? Well, the proximate cause was war. They lost their currency regimes because they went to war. But of course, the real cause was they lost the economic engine which could support their empires and support their wars. Does that sound familiar to you? I think it does, wow. Right? We're $50 trillion in debt, at war with Russia through the Ukraine. The American people have no idea why we're there. A bunch of young Christian men in the Ukraine are being slaughtered daily. And so that's a brief intro. And then the one other thing I ought to say is the reason you ought to take this serious is because no one's going to put $1 into China, right? Everybody, you're not going to park your money in China or Russia or Brazil. But they're coming together and they're going to form a gold-backed currency and combine it with blockchain technology, which provides total privacy and a complete record of all transactions. If you put all that together, you have a valid currency that's going to maintain its strength because of gold, and you don't have to worry about security because of blockchain. So it is a real threat. It's a signal to the U.S. to get our act together. I don't have much confidence that we are going to get our act together, but this is what's the natural consequence of our dereliction of fiscal duties over the decades.
Yeah, and it's, the fact that you mentioned 20 others, the president of South Africa just mentioned 6 who are going to be coming on as full members. The expansion of this coalition itself is frightening. It seems rather inevitable where this is going to end up, doesn't it?
Yeah, the U.S. is clearly losing our authority on the world stage, right? We set up the Bretton Woods liberal world order back when liberal was a good word. It meant basically a rights regime, like we have in our Declaration and Constitution. And we protected the world as long as they would help us fight against the Soviet Union back then, the communist threat. Well, the world has changed significantly. Now China is our biggest threat. And we are just ill-equipped, right? We're doing woke stuff in the military. We're $50 trillion in debt. We have an open border. The kids can't read in the 3rd grade. And the Federal Reserve has ruined our economy over the past 20 years, right? We had the 07-08 financial crisis. And now we're trying to work our way out of another bubble. And
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, right along those same lines. You mentioned the woke. I don't know if you caught this, but the BRICS announcement came the very same day that our Agency for International Development, you said, it released its comprehensive LGBTQIA plus guidelines. So it's not just the horrendous shape of our economy, but the United States keeps pushing this wokeness on other countries, and aren't we pushing people away? These other countries don't want our woke ideology, and we're really pushing away countries that otherwise ought to be our allies, don't you think?
Yeah, no, that's right. We're having a CEO summit at Liberty October 10 to 12. We're hosting a bunch of African delegations from Nigeria, DRC, et cetera. They're scratching their heads along the lines you just said. They don't know what's going on with this U.S. initiatives. And of course, this tracks the greater concern, the LGB, alphabet pronoun stuff is a sign of a Wall Street Journal poll a few months back, which showed that the United States is losing our religiosity and we're losing our patriotism. Both down 30 points in the last 5 years. That's not a typo. Religiosity, the Judeo-Christian tradition, which grounds and is the total foundation. It's the unique claim that we're all made in the image of God, and that set of minimal rights needs to be protected in law, and it has been. That is now in question in the West.
Dr. Dave Bratt, I've got to let you go there, but thank you so much for your tremendous insight, which we had all evening to share with you. God bless. Have a great weekend.
Brother. Thanks, Jody. God bless.
Likewise. All right, friends, tomorrow marks a sad and somber anniversary for our country, one that we will not forget. I'll discuss it right after the break. Stay tuned.
All of us are born with the desire to find truth and meaning. Where did I come from? What happens when I die? While our answers to these questions may divide us, we are united in our need for the freedom to answer life's biggest questions and make life's biggest decisions for ourselves. That's why religious freedom matters for everyone. Religious freedom matters because the powerful have long wanted to control those who are less powerful. Religious freedom matters because the freedom of those who are different is often threatened by those who believe different is dangerous. Leah Sheribu, a Christian teenager in Nigeria, remains a captive of Boko Haram for her refusal to renounce her Christian faith. Chinese pastor Wang Yi is serving a 9-year sentence for speaking publicly against the Chinese government. All of this because people in power decided different is dangerous. At the Center for Religious Liberty at Family Research Council, we promote religious freedom for everyone because the only alternative is religious freedom for no one. We encourage Americans and the American government to engage and advocate for the persecuted, and they do. We work every day to bring good news to the afflicted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners. We do it because that's what Jesus does. We work to give freedom to others because we ourselves have been set free.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm your host, Jody Heiss, and an honor to have you joining us this evening. All right, it was August 26, 2021. That was among the deadliest days of the entire 20-year war in Afghanistan. 13 U.S. soldiers were among those killed in a suicide bomb attack in Kabul just days before the full withdrawal of the nation that was ordered by President Biden. The group of fallen soldiers included 11 Marines, 1 Army soldier, and 1 member of the Navy, and we today remember them.
Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover, Sergeant Nicole G., Sergeant Johanny Pichardo, Staff Sergeant Ryan Nouse, Corporal Dagan Page, Corporal Humberto Sanchez, Corporal Hunter Lopez, Hospital Corpsman Maxton Soviak, Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui, Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, Lance Corporal Jared Schmidt, Lance Corporal David Espinoza, Lance Corporal Riley McCullum.
All right, that is the second time we have shared that because these soldiers deserve to be remembered. And so much as I am aware, the President Biden, has, here we are 2 years removed, and still he has not mentioned the names of those 13 who were killed. And we will mention them. we will remember them. That was a reading, by the way, of the names that was done earlier this month by Alicia Lopez, who's the mother of one of the Marines who was killed. Well, joining me now to talk about all of this is Tom Kilgannon. He's the president of Freedom Alliance, an organization that provides support to America's military families and advocates for a strong national defense. Tom, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Jody, it's always great to be on the program. I wish we had better circumstances to have this conversation. But I want to thank you and Family Research Council for paying tribute to these 13 heroic service members, because I think every American should use the platforms they have to pay tribute to those who go off to far and distant places to protect our country.
Yeah, I agree. It's just it's chilling to me, the attitude that this administration has taken. They may not be calling it a victory, but they're not really admitting, and they're certainly not apologetic about what took place. In fact, I have a clip here. Play clip 6, please.
Do you have regrets about their withdrawal or how the withdrawal occurred from Afghanistan that cost the lives of 13 of our service members?
I don't have any regrets.
You don't have any regrets. Secretary Austin, it's very telling.
Yeah, that was Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin earlier this year, and that questioning him was Congressman Jim Banks. And so no regrets looking back. What do you think of, Tom, when you reflect on what happened 2 years ago?
Jody, what I think of is 13 heroic service members died, and Lloyd Austin has no regrets. There was chaos and confusion at the airport, and Lloyd Austin had no regrets. There was devastation to 13 Gold Star families, and Lloyd Austin has no regrets. It is disgusting that he would say those kinds of things in an open forum, in any forum, frankly, and that he and other members of the administration, and I specifically point out the president, as you've indicated here, who has not spoken the names of those families. And we need to have a better way of treating our Gold Star families than what this administration has done.
Yeah, we surely do. And one of those ways, I mean, you were there. You're in the trenches with these families. You work daily with families who have lost loved ones in service for our country. And you work with these specific families of the 13. Can you tell us a little bit about what they've been going through?
Well, they've been devastated, Jody, and they are hurting. And on top of that hurt, they have been insulted, because what they are saying, just a few weeks ago, Congressman Darrell Issa of California held a hearing in which he provided a forum for these families to speak out and tell what has happened to them. And the families of 6 of the fallen service members showed up at that hearing and gave their stories. And what they said was the information they're getting from the administration and from the military has been at best inconsistent, and at worst it's been flat out lies. And so I think, we've had reports, we've had investigations from inspectors general about what happened on the ground and what led up to it. I think we need an inspector general's investigation into how these Gold Star families have been treated. What were they told? What was the truth? And what is the delta in between those two? And let's look at what lies have been told to them and figure that out so that we can find better ways to treat America's Gold Star families. It is just unconscionable the way they've been treated. And I commend to any of your viewers to watch that hearing that Darrell Issa held, because the testimony is gut-wrenching.
Okay, Tom, 30 seconds left. How can we honor these families in the memory of their loved ones? How can we pray for them in about 30 seconds?
Certainly from a government perspective, there needs to be accountability. I think Lloyd Austin should have stepped down at a minimum. Congress should censure him and General Mark Milley for what has happened. I think there ought to be this investigation of which I just spoke. And I think for members of the public like you and I, do whatever we can to remember these 13 heroes. We should pray for them. We should pray for their families, and that they have the comfort.
We got to leave it there. Tom Kilgannon, Freedom Alliance, thank you for joining us. All right, friends, after the break, detransitioner Chloe Cole will join me to share her powerful story. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after the break.
It begins here, and here, and here. Every day. Before you stand, you need solid ground. Standing in a culture that wants you to surrender the truth won't work unless you have a firm foundation. At Family Research Council, we have that firm foundation, and you can find us standing. We stand for the value of all human life. We stand for the right of families to flourish. And every day we stand for your freedom to believe and to live out those beliefs both at home and abroad. We work with government officials, educating them on the issues from a biblical worldview. And when necessary, we hold them accountable. We equip Christians across America to be informed and to take action in their communities. With our daily radio program, television appearances, and vast online presence, we reach people where they are. We envision an America where all human life is valued, families flourish, and religious liberty thrives. And that won't be realized if we're not standing. Stand for faith. Stand for family. Stand for freedom. Stand with us at FRC.
I'm often asked by people, Tony, how do you stay encouraged? How do you deal with all of the stuff in Washington, D.C., the negative policies that are attacking our faith, our family, and our freedoms? Well, you want me to let you in on the secret? It's called the Word of God. And that is why the Family Research Council embarked on Stand on the Word, a 2-year journey through the Bible. It's a chronological Bible reading plan with just 10 to 15 minutes a day. In 2 years, you will have covered the entire Bible. And to go along with this, Monday through Friday, I do a morning devotional that goes along with the reading of the day. It's all designed to encourage you on this journey because the Word of God, as the psalmist said, in my affliction, here's my comfort. Your Word gives me life. That is our source of strength. To find out more, go to TonyPerkins.com or frc.org/Bible. And I invite you to join me every morning for our Stand on the Word Bible devotion.
This fall, believers from across America will gather in our nation's capital. We'll hear from government leaders, policy experts, and leading Christian voices, learning how we can engage in government at every level, from local school boards to state legislatures to Congress and even the White House, to win back the soul of our nation. Join with us for the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, Believe and Engage, September 15th through 17th. Register now at PrayVoteStand.org. FRC celebrating 40 years with Congresswoman Lisa McClain.
In Congress, it's tough, and you get hit. You get bombs thrown at you from all different sides, and at times you have a tendency to get down. FRC approaches things in a very different way. It approaches it with a faith-based principle, in a faith-based manner, which is really lacking not only in Congress, but I would say in America today. FRC is an organization that provides an optimistic, hopeful, positive view of the future.
A heartfelt message from Representative Lisa McClain. Thank you so much for that. And friends, it's true. FRC stands in the gap. For 40 years, FRC has been standing in the gap, standing for faith, family, and freedom, standing on Capitol Hill and in so many other avenues that the Lord has provided. We want to invite you to come join us September 15th through 17th at this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. It's going to be held in Washington, D.C. We've got some phenomenal guests. President Trump, DeSantis, among many, many, many others. I can't go into the list of them. But we want to work together with you and partner together to influence our culture and our nation for good. Go to PrayVoteStand.org for details and to register right now, PrayVoteStand.org. All right, let's jump into our final topic of the day. Among the many political flashpoints that will be leading up to this upcoming election, be it the presidential election or many beyond the presidential one, is the whole issue of gender procedures for minors, including the use of hormones, puberty blockers, and permanent mutilating surgeries, all these type of things. And there is an entire apparatus out there working to legitimize these experimental procedures that includes virtually all the mainstream medical association, public education institutions, the Democratic Party from the president on down. But there are some brave voices willing to stand up to this messaging apparatus. And today I'm honored to welcome one of the most prominent of those voices, Chloe Cole, to share her story and offer her thoughts. Chloe, welcome to Washington Watch. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me, Tony.
Well, listen, let's, some of our viewers, listeners may not be aware, but real quickly, share your story.
So I call myself a detransitioner, meaning that I've been through the process of gender transition and I decided to go back on that decision. I went through the process entirely as a minor. I was 12 when I started socially transition, meaning that I chose a new name for myself, started calling myself a boy, and changing the way that I presented. And then at 13 was when I started to go on the physical interventions like puberty blockers and testosterone. And at 15, the summer after my sophomore year of high school had ended, was when I underwent the surgery. I had a double mastectomy, meaning that my breasts had been removed permanently. And I stopped transitioning about a year afterward, at 16 years old, when I realized that I had regretted all these interventions, that I was too young to be making decisions like this, and that by doing all this, I was losing parts of my adulthood before I could even call myself a woman, and that one day I wanted to be able to have kids of my own.
Wow. It's an amazing story. I know one of the parts of your story, Chloe, that is so powerful, and you've been candid about this, is how the professionals literally pushed you and your parents to transition. Tell us about that part of your story.
I mean, really, they were just giving me what I, as the child, wanted, rather than stopping and letting me be a kid and thinking about what it might have been that I actually needed, which was psychotherapy and just being given a chance to just grow up. And they told my parents, they expected my parents to go along with all of this. They told them that it was going to be life or death for me, that I would become suicidal if I were not on these interventions. And really, what it came down to was just they emotionally manipulated my parents. Yes.
Right. How did they manipulate your parents?
They told them that blood was going to be on their hands, that they were either going to have a dead daughter or a living transgender son, and that they only had those two choices. No other choices were presented to us. They never told them about the possibility that I would desist or detransition, or of me regretting these procedures. They said that it was more likely that I regret going through puberty than I ever would being on these interventions.
It's just unbelievable how, I mean, so much worse than manipulation. This was just evil twisting of your arms. To give only those two options to your parents is just absolutely brutal. Now let's fast forward, if we can, Chloe, to the process of you making the decision to go public about this story and about this whole issue. What drove you to be a public voice?
I mean, when I initially detransitioned, I actually got a really aggressive response from the transgender community. And the people who had celebrated me the most through my transition, and especially when I got the surgery or went on hormones, were now turning their back on me, and they were saying the cruelest things to me. And even my doctors, I wasn't getting any support from them. I wasn't getting any help as to how to go off of the hormones or any of the complications that I was having from these procedures. And it was an incredibly lonely experience, so much more difficult than transitioning in the first place. I pretty much had to figure it out all on my own. And very soon after I stopped transitioning, I started interacting in communities of other people who had gone through transition and regretted it or had been damaged by it. And while on one hand, it was kind of comforting knowing that I wasn't the only one going through this, I found it incredibly painful and terrifying that I'm not the only one who has been hurt by this, that there are many people out there, the amount of which we'll never know, who have been through the exact same experience. And I wanted to be able to advocate for other people, especially the other kids who have been in this situation, and to prevent it from happening ever again.
Well, thank you for taking that kind of stance. And, you know, it's amazing to me how the Lord, well, it shouldn't be amazing, but how he has opened up so many doors. You have testified before Congress. You've been before many state legislatures. How has that overall experience been for you?
I mean, really, it's been such a roller coaster of emotions because I've dedicated pretty much the past year of my life to this, and at times it can be difficult, and it can be kind of nerve-wracking giving my testimony, but it's so worth it. Just being able to affect the legislation around this, to help other kids and families, and to reach out to other people to help to get the support that we all need through this.
Chloe, that's powerful words, what you said there in the midst of the hardships of it all, that it is so worth it. And I just want to reaffirm to you, it is so worth it. We need your voice. So many of these children are just being, like you, and like your parents, are being twisted. Arms are being twisted, so to speak, to make permanent decisions like this. And you actually consider all this an abuse, what happened to you, don't you?
That's absolutely what it is. At every single level, I was failed by these adults, these people who call themselves doctors, who are supposed to help my parents in raising me and getting care. It's
just shameful in every way. You know, there's a study, a recent study. I'm sure you've seen all the studies out there, but that the gender procedures have tripled in the last several years, and that's frightening when you think about. But it's not surprising when you see how it's being pushed on students in the schools from young ages on up. What all do you attribute to this tripling numbers, this increasing numbers of people transitioning?
I mean, a good percentage of these people, and every single transgender person, if not all of them, have had some sort of comorbid issue, whether it be like a learning disorder such as ADHD or autism, or like a cluster B personality disorder, depression, social anxiety, or overwhelmingly, many of them have a history of trauma, whether it be of sexual abuse or assault or rape, or a parental or family trauma. And it's not hard to see how that might play into the way that a person sees themselves in relation to their sex.
Absolutely. I'm curious your thoughts on this related aspect of this whole issue, and that is, you've spoken, and so many of us have seen you and followed you. You've testified before Congress and all these types of places, but you've also spoken at a number of school board meetings, specifically on the issue of parental rights is what I'm referring to now, because these kind of go hand in hand, and what happened to your parents as well through all of this. But parental rights and the notification issue, what's your take on these efforts in schools to create some sort of barrier between parents and the children?
I think it's plain perverted that these adults outside of a child's family think that they can just get in between a child and their parents and their caretaker and keep secrets from them. No adult has any right to do that, to hide things from a kid's parents, especially something as important as this relating to their child's mental health.
Yeah, and nobody loves these children like the parents do, right? I mean, that's right. That's the family. That is the nucleus of support and love and care for these children. Yes. I don't know if you saw Montgomery County, Maryland, has just recently announced a policy, and we're seeing this type of thing across the country. But they announced a policy that parents cannot opt their children out of the classrooms when the discussions of transgenderism and all these other sexual issues come up. The parents sued the county, but yesterday a federal judge literally ruled against the parents. How concerned are you by the indoctrination that we're seeing in schools and entertainment, so many other places?
I mean, it's incredibly concerning that these schools think that they can control what the child's exposed to more than the parent. I mean, back when I was in school, when I was in middle and high school, we had like waivers for parents to sign off for sex ed, but they don't get a choice on this.
Great question. Great point. Because I grew up the same way. And it was, man, we've come a long ways, and a long ways in the wrong direction. All right, Chloe, I want you, if you will, let's take a moment and speak into the lives of our viewers, our listeners of the program right now, who perhaps have a child or a grandchild that's struggling with gender dysphoria. Where should these parents start? What would have been helpful to you at that point?
The best thing to do is to not intervene, to not go the path of having these children go on permanent interventions that will affect them for the rest of their lives. It's important to speak to them directly and openly about where these feelings are coming from, what it is that makes them feel like they're not enough as their own sex, what is influencing them to think that they can just opt out of either being a boy or a girl and go the other path. And to remember to be compassionate to them, to let them know that they are loved, that they are perfect as they are, that the issue is not their body or the way that they look or were born, but the way that they see it, and to guide them through it. And also to try to remove the influence that is making them think otherwise, whether it be from school, whether they're learning it in class, from their peers, or from the internet, and to respond accordingly. Like in the case of it being from social media or the internet, you might have to take away their devices and to replace it with something else, like a sport, or encouraging them to go after and develop a hobby. Or if it's coming from school, then you'll have to be more involved in your child's education, to see what is going on in the classroom, to look at the curriculum, and you may have to move schools, you may have to end up homeschooling them, which is not an option for every parent, and it is incredibly difficult. But I think that in the very end, it's worth it, because that gives you full control over what your child is being exposed to and what they're taught.
It really does. Chloe, we've only got about 30 seconds here left. How much of this do you think, in your case, was just attributed to puberty? That's not an easy process to go through. That most people would come through this if they just go through it. We only have 15 seconds.
I think that was a big part of it. For me, puberty started very early, and it was a very difficult adjustment for me, but nothing that I felt was really out of the ordinary. It was just me growing up into a woman.
Chloe Cole, thank you so much for your powerful voice and for going against the tide on this issue, and thank you for joining us on Washington Watch. Friends, that's all the time we have tonight. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you next week.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council and is entirely listener-supported. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information on anything you've heard today, or to find out how you can partner with us in our ongoing efforts to promote faith, family, and freedom, visit TonyPerkins.com. Also, to leave a comment about Washington Watch, call our watch line at 1-866-372-7234. That's 1-866-372-7234.
Over the last 20 years, with all your support, we've been able to not only launch the original MyPillow, but also the MyPillow mattress topper, Giza Dream bed sheets, My Slippers, and the MyPillow bath towels. But there's so much more. In fact, we have over 200 products, and I'm so confident that you'll love each and every one of them that when you go to MyPillow.com now, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20 just for checking out the website. No purchase necessary. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, body pillows, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And remember, just for checking out MyPillow.com, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20. No purchase necessary. This is a limited time promotion, so go to MyPillow.com now.
Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.